Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. First, I want to let you know that the President signed our pre-landfall declaration late last night. And so we now have the ability to access federal funds. I want to thank the President for his swift consideration of our request and his granting approval. Well, we're in the midst of the hurricane now, as everyone can see at home on television out their window. We're already experiencing the heavy rainfall, wind, and some flooding in parts of New Jersey. We're still at the very early parts of this storm, and you can see how serious it is. I can't be any clearer than this. You need to stay off the roads today. The flooding is already happening in significant ways across the state. I'll go into more detail. But people really need to stay home and stay off the roads. You know, everyone should be asking themselves if the trip they're thinking about making is absolutely necessary, or if, once you're out on the roads, you're going to feel as if you made a huge mistake. If you have any doubt about whether it's necessary or not, please stay home. And right now, I want to talk to the people, if they still have electricity, who stayed behind on the barrier islands. There is already significant flooding on the barrier islands, and we've just had one round of high tide. We have reports of 5 feet of water in some places in Atlantic County, significant flooding in Cape May County and in Ocean County. The decision to stay on the barrier islands was a bad one, and you need to get out. Now, there may be no possibility for you to get out at this point. If some of the high tide water recedes this afternoon and you see a way to get off the barrier islands, get off the barrier islands. If you don't, then you have to shelter yourselves in your home on your highest floor, because the high tide that's coming in tonight is just going to add to the 2, 3, or 5 feet of water that already exists. Because of the rain and the wind, very little of that water is going to recede during the low tide. And so, you know, I ask you please get off the barrier islands, but there are some towns in Atlantic and Ocean counties that are only 50% evacuated, for reports that I've gotten. I read some joker in the newspaper this morning saying, you know, I've never run away in his fatigues, saying he's never run away from one of these, he's not going to run away now. Well, you know, you might wind up under it, not running away from it. This is not a time to be a show-off. This is not a time to be stupid. This is a time to try to save yourself and your family. So for anyone who still has electricity on the barrier islands and can hear this or see it, if you can find a way to get off the barrier islands in the next few hours safely, I would suggest to you would, because tonight is going to be significantly worse on the barrier islands than it was last night or during the day so far today. Lastly, for those folks in the barriers, you're putting other people in harm's way as well. We already have rescues ongoing on the barrier islands. This is putting first responders in significant danger. And it's not fair to their families for you to be putting them in that danger because you decided that you wanted to be hard-headed. So let's try to get a move on the barrier islands, get some of those people off if we can when the water recedes. If not, again, when it comes in tonight, we're not going to be able to come in and rescue you. It's going to be dark. Electricity most likely will be out if it's not already. And we're not going to be able to get first responders in to find you. So again, you know, everybody thinks they're smarter than we are here, and maybe they are, but not about this. Conditions are going to get worse throughout the day. We're looking at landfall around midnight tonight. Again, right around Atlantic City is the current path, with the heaviest rain occurring right before landfall. So that'll be tonight. At the same time, that high tide will be coming in. High tide will be coming in tonight between 8 and 9 o'clock along the New Jersey coast. We expect the heaviest rains right before it hits landfall around midnight on the New Jersey coast. So you all can put 2 and 2 together and understand that the flooding along the New Jersey coastline is going to be significant. We're already seeing serious flooding in Cape May, Atlantic County, and other communities in the barrier islands. And at this point in time, as I said, some parts of Atlantic County are seeing as much as 5 feet of water. We're also monitoring the Raritan and Passaic rivers. At this point, we don't see significant problems with the Raritan and Passaic rivers. Rivers currently forecast to go above flood stage are the Millstone River at Blackwell's Mills, Rancocas Creek at Pemberton, and the Raritan at Bound Brook. All are expected to exceed minor flood stage by Tuesday night. Let's talk about road closures. The Garden State Parkway is closed in both directions from exit 63, the Long Beach Island exit. Closure is due to flooding conditions at several locations between Cape May and exit 63. Means 63 miles of the parkway is closed in both directions. In addition to the parkway closure, there are 16 other full road closures across 6 counties. All of that's on the coast. Motorists should anticipate significant closures on the Turnpike and Parkway as conditions continue to deteriorate throughout the day and into the evening. As I've said again, stay off the road. You're not just putting yourself in danger, but you're putting others' lives in danger. And so we need people to stay off the road. Motorists should check 511nj.org. That's 511nj.org for up-to-the-minute information on road closures. Talk about the power situation. Right now, statewide, and these are approximate numbers, everybody. They're approximate numbers. 35,000 people statewide without power. 21,000 of those are in the Atlantic City electric area. 13,000 from JCP&L, and about 1,000 for PSE&G, with a negligible number from Orange and Rockland County Company. BPU is working to assist South Jersey industries in obtaining the needed approvals for essential SJI employees and subcontractors to access Atlantic City in support of the combined heat and power generation units servicing Revel and Borgata. We're also monitoring and assisting, if necessary, the utilities company's efforts to open staging and housing areas to accommodate the thousands of outside crews and their heavy equipment that are migrating into the state to assist in our recovery efforts, and that stuff has already begun. Currently, there's 15 staging areas that's set up around the state to accommodate the influx of crews. The crews will be housed in and dispatched from those areas to where they're needed. We're also working with the New Jersey State Police to obtain needed authorization to enable JCP&L to land helicopters at the company's staging areas, which are open fields, if and when necessary, to try to move folks around more quickly. BPU continues to receive updated information from the 4 companies regarding external aid secured through regional mutual aid agreements and from private contractors. I know we've discussed this over the last few days, but if you do not have power, please do not choose today as the time you decide to tap in to your creative juices and jerry-rig a power source. We need to be careful of the potential dangers of portable generators and backfeeding during power outages, in addition to some of these dangerous alternatives that folks may pursue. Please, we said this the other day, if it looks stupid, it is stupid, and you're going to wind up hurting yourselves and others. There's going to be a long period of time for some folks where we're going to be without power here. We are only in the beginnings of the storm. Storm is still, a couple hundred miles off the New Jersey coast, and you're seeing what's happening already. So it's going to be a while, so everyone needs to take a deep breath and make sure that they've been prepared and that they relax. We're talking for a second about the National Guard. We've transitioned to state active duty joint task force with more than 1,100 airmen and soldiers preparing for storm response. The Guard has also repositioned equipment to strategic locations across the state. That's more than 450 high water vehicles, including Humvees and heavy trucks, available to assist civil authorities. They're also prepared to provide helicopters with video downlink capability to conduct reconnaissance of shorelines, the Raritan and Passaic River basins, and other areas and post landfall damage assessments. Although right now, with the winds being as they are, those helicopters are grounded, and we will not be able to go back up in those helicopters until the winds subside, which could be another 36 hours. So again, that's my concern about the people, housing themselves in the barrier islands. We're not going to have a lot of ways to get to you if the flooding is 6, 8, 10 feet of water, and we can't fly helicopters to you. The National Guard has also deployed and state soldiers and airmen at the Freehold and Woodbridge armories for support of 8 state-supported shelter facilities. They've completed preparations through the U.S. Northern Command and the National Guard Bureau to coordinate the use, if necessary, of active-duty military forces for additional military first response if I deem that necessary. Now, we're not aware of any unmet needs regarding sheltering right now. Let me talk to you a bit about sheltering. Most people are listening. I want to thank them. Most people are listening and following the protocol, which is shelter at home if you can. If you can't, then with family and friends. If not with family and friends, then local shelters. If not local shelters, then county shelters. If the county shelter is filled, then we will transport you to a state shelter. There are over 40 state and local shelters operating with a capacity of about 6,300 evacuees. We currently have about 2,260 New Jerseyans in shelter. In Atlantic City, we successfully evacuated about 800 individuals utilizing buses provided by NJ Transit to Rutgers and to Monmouth University. We did that because the county facilities were full. And so they filled their county capacity. We then took those folks forward to state facilities. We're prepared for additional capacity if we need to. Ed Dixon, the head of Homeland Security, is working with Commissioner Velez of Human Services to identify and stand up additional state shelters if necessary as conditions warrant as we go through the night. We are deploying mental health crisis counselors across the state. We're moving cots and food and water to the state-supported shelters. Again, if you need a state-supported shelter, go to nj211.org. That's nj211.org. We'll give you a list of shelters by county and the state shelters as well, although you should not go directly to a state shelter. You should go to a county shelter as your fourth option. And if that county shelter is filled, there will be state transportation available there to take you to one of our state facilities. Now, lastly, and then I'll take questions. I told folks both Saturday and Sunday that this was going to be a significant storm and that we needed to be prepared and that it was going to be a long haul. We are just at the first 12 hours or so of this storm. We've probably got another 36 hours to go on what we need, what we're going to see having happen to our state. And so we're going to see winds increase as we move forward into the evening. We're going to see flooding increase, and we're going to see rain increase. All of that's going to get worse than it is now as the storm approaches and then makes landfall in about 12 hours in Atlantic City. So I want everybody, again, to remain home, to stay inside, to remain calm. We're prepared. We're sheltering those people who need to be sheltered. We're dealing with the utility companies in a constructive way. We're making sure that we're keeping as many roads open as we can for people who do have to utilize them, especially for our first responders. We are here at the Operations and Intelligence Center monitoring conditions on a regular basis to make sure that if we need to change our response, we can. So we're remaining calm. I want you to remain calm too. We're going to make our way through the next 36 hours, and then we will deal with whatever the aftermath is in an appropriately aggressive way. But right now, the most important thing is to save lives. We do not want to have significant loss of life in this storm. There is the real chance we could have that if people aren't following instructions. So we need folks to follow instructions, need folks to be on top of things, and we need folks to remain calm. I know that every school in New Jersey is closed today, so there may be some children out there watching as well. I want to tell them specifically there is no reason to be scared. You're there hopefully with your parents, with your caregivers. Remain calm. The adults are taking care of business. So don't get scared. We will take care of it and everyone will be safe. I'm happy to take questions.
Governor Christie, with possibly a historic storm that we've never seen before coming on shore, what would you say is your biggest concern right now with respect to specific New Jersey infrastructure? Is it storm drains, low-lying roads, coasts?
Yes. Listen, my concerns are as following. First, the flooding. And the flooding can lead to a number of problems, obviously. It's first and foremost potential death and injury to individuals. Second, property damage, both to private property and to infrastructure, like roadways and substations for the power companies. I'm worried about the wind. Secondly, you're talking about sustained tropical storm winds, 40 to 70 miles an hour inland and over 75 miles an hour sustained for 24 hours along the coastline. That's going to cause significant damage to trees, which are going to take down power lines. It may take down power distribution lines just through the power of the wind with the softening ground underneath it because of the drenching rain. So I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned also about people, once the rain stops, going out there and trying to be a hero, and people need to be listening to us so that they don't get themselves in trouble, because we have a lot of down power lines. I'm concerned about that as well. Down power lines can be extraordinarily dangerous, and there's going to be some probably in almost every neighborhood in New Jersey. And so we're going to need people to be careful to stay inside even after the rain passes and that subsides. So I'm worried about our electrical infrastructure. I'm worried about our road infrastructure. And those are the two biggest things I'm worried about from a property perspective. The biggest thing I'm worried about is to keep people safe and keep them alive. That's our first job. All the rest of it we can replace and repair. Lives we can't replace and repair.
We're being told that 116,000 people had mandatory evacuations. Are you confident with the number of people that did get out of harm's way, or are you concerned that there are people still, obviously?
No, I'm really concerned that there's still people in harm's way on the barrier islands. That we have, 25% of the people decide to stay in Seaside Heights. It's just stupid. If any of you watched this, I was watching this morning, some of the news folks on the boardwalk in Seaside Heights. And that's at noon today. The storm's 200 miles away. What do you think that's going to be like in 12 hours when the storm comes onshore? About 50 miles south of Seaside Heights. So I'm very concerned about the people who refused to adhere to my mandatory evacuation order and said they were going to ride it out. They are, let me make this as definitive as I can, they are now in harm's way. And I don't know whether we can get them out or not, given the conditions. We're going to try, but we're putting other people in harm's way now too, the first responders, to get them out. So these decisions were both stupid and selfish, and it's only going to get worse in the next 12 hours. Other questions? Yeah, John.
Governor, the pre-landfall declaration, can you explain a little bit more about what that actually does, what it covers? And do you have any idea with some of the pictures we're seeing of flooding of any damage estimates even now?
No. John, we're not worried about damage estimates at this point. We'd just be spitballing it, and I don't want to do that based upon our past experience. Let's wait until after it's over. The pre-landfall declaration allows us to have the confidence that federal funds are going to be there through FEMA and other programs to be able to help us deal with the recovery. Also allows us to access other federal assets during the storm that we might need to help to preserve life. So FEMA's here on the ground working with us here at the Rock. The President responded very quickly, and the staff at FEMA, Craig Fugate and his staff are outstanding folks. And they helped us with our pre-landfall application to make sure that we didn't have to go through, because oftentimes you go through a few drafts back and forth to make sure that it has all the information they want. They helped us right up front with it to make sure that when we sent it in, it was perfect the first time from their perspective. And the President assured me yesterday on the telephone that would get his immediate personal attention, and obviously it did. He signed it late last night. So, it's going to allow us to have access to federal funding and federal assets that we otherwise would not have without the pre-landfall declaration until after it was over, when we asked for some declaration of emergency afterwards. So we appreciate the President's efforts in that regard. He and his staff worked tremendously hard.
Has the storm gotten more intense than was being predicted, and what does that mean both for the area of the impact or the size of the...
It's gone back and forth, Michael. I've heard them talk about it being more intense and less intense, although now it seems to us that it's more intense than what they predicted. It's certainly because of the combination of events here. The nor'easter, the hurricane, the high tides coming in twice with full moon, this morning already, and then this evening again. That combination makes it, incredibly dangerous, and something that, again, we're going to see how it all turns out. But if it's on the course that it's on now, this will be something in terms of a flooding event that we haven't seen in a long time.
Governor, as far as the wind is concerned, getting the helicopters back up, if someone does need help, what is that parameter? How low do the winds need to be in order to be able to send helicopters up to help possibly rescue people?
We have a starting limit of 45 knots, so around 50 knots, 50 miles an hour, 58 miles an hour, 50 knots.
Governor, you mentioned mental health counselors. Do you have a sense of how many are going out and what the mindset of people in shelters is right now?
I don't have a sense yet what the mindset is of people in shelters right now, but what we know is typically what happens in these events. People have incredible anxiety, both about their own safety and the safety of their property, and safety of loved ones who might be in other parts of the state that they might have difficulty contacting. So You know, we have mental health counselors out there. We're sending them out as necessary, as needed to all the shelters. And we will provide the services that need to be provided to those folks to help them through the difficult time they're having. Any questions, ma'am? Yeah.
Do you have any instructions at this point for people for Tuesday, or is it just too early?
A little too early to tell yet, Angie, although it's certainly trending in my mind towards a closure of state government operations on Tuesday as well, and schools. It's trending in that direction. I know that I think over 300 schools have already made the decision to close on Tuesday. So I think that's trending in that direction, but I want to wait and see what the track does in the next 4 or 5 hours. You know, you've heard us come up here and say different things over time over the last 2 days. So I want to wait a little bit longer before to make a decision on Tuesday. But I would say to you, I'm trending in the direction of closing state government operations on Tuesday as well, unless there's a significant change in the path of the storm.
And when will we expect to hear from you again? When will the next
I think
update be?
tonight. I think tonight. I intend to brief all of you, I think, before I ask the governor tonight, I believe. That's it. But general, either I will or someone else will, probably the governor.
And landfall, governor, is now set for where and
They're saying,
around midnight?
Acknowledging again, Michael, these are approximations, okay, because we don't know for sure. But the current approximation is around midnight tonight, right around the Atlantic City area. So I think if you were responsibly reporting it, you'd say it's going to land somewhere between Atlantic City and Northern Ocean County, and it's somewhere around midnight. Might be 11, might be 2, you know. Storm has a mind of its own, and it's moving at a very slow pace. So we're looking at around midnight, somewhere between Atlantic City and Northern Ocean County. Best estimate of time, Michael.
You said yesterday that you were most concerned about Barrett River today. Is that still a topic?
Again, you know, now that the storm entry level has moved further south, more towards Atlantic City, less from the Monmouth County area, the way they're looking right now, that's helpful for the northern parts in terms of flooding. So the further south the storm goes, the more flooding you'll see in the south. And if it goes much further south and went below down to the Cape May area in terms of entry point, then we have a Delaware River problem, because it will push water up the Delaware Bay, up the Delaware River, and have problems which we don't think we'll have right now. So again, I think my biggest concern of flooding right now is the coastline and other parts of southern New Jersey. Still, we're going to have flooding in the Raritan area, and we're going to have flooding up in the Passaic River area. But at the moment, at least, based on forecast, that flooding will not be as significant as the flooding in the southern part of the state and on the coastline.
Governor, did you have you may have said this already, but I meant overall Barrier Island's percentage of how many people did not evacuate?
Do we have an overall percentage?
The overwhelming number did evacuate to some communities where a disturbed number of people.
Brigantine was one of them, right? Brigantine was like 50%, Seaside only 75%. Most of the towns, they were telling us 90% evacuation, but there were a handful of towns that did not evacuate, you know, to the 90% level, and those are the ones that we're concerned about. Other questions? Yeah.
We're talking about Monday and Tuesday, and I know that your office is already asking for volunteers for cleanup. When can we start to see some relief? The rain starting to ease up a little bit.
View is Wednesday. The current forecast says there might still be some rain on Wednesday, light rain on Wednesday, but that the majority of the storm will be out of our area by Wednesday. But, you know, again, as I mentioned before, for folks, of the 35,000 folks who have lost power already, this is going to be a haul, because these power companies are not getting out there in the next 24 hours to fix this stuff, maybe the next 36 hours. And so everyone's going to be behind the 8 ball in that regard. So I'm asking for folks to be patient. Now remember, we will be vigilant on the power companies. We're not going to give them a pass on this. But on the other hand, we have to acknowledge that there are OSHA regulations that say, you know, if the winds are 40 miles an hour or greater, that line workers are not allowed to get up in bucket trucks to fix lines. It's against federal law. So, you know, we're not going to ask them to break the law to get somebody's power on, so they're certainly not going to ask them to put someone's life in danger to do it. So For those people who have lost power already or will lose power between now and when I speak to you next, I'm gonna have to ask for your patience because the storm lingering, as long as it's lingering, creates a real problem for us in terms of the ability for the companies to get out there with trucks to do it. The good news though is that we've gotten a lot of mutual assistance trucks from out of state. We have plenty of workers to get out there. The companies have really ramped up off of the investigation of last year's storm, and we have significantly more human resources available to us than we did in the run-up to Irene. So that's good news. And I think you'll see that help on the back end. But the back end won't start until later than usual because of the storm lingering.
Governor, do you have any kind of overview of what kinds of rescues are happening on the Barrier Islands? Are people being like plucked from their homes or things like that?
We'll give you further detail later. I don't want to, I have some anecdotal stuff that I haven't had confirmed. I went through this a year ago. You know, I mean, we had reports of a EMS worker dying and saying he didn't die, then he did die. I don't want to go back through that stuff again. So I'll wait till I get this anecdotal stuff that we're hearing confirmed by law enforcement on the ground. And as soon as we get it confirmed, we'll pass it on to you. We won't wait till the next briefing. If we have stuff that we think is important for you to know, we'll pass it on. But I don't want to do it now, Jenna. It's, you know, that turned out to be wrong, then we're all wrong. You're writing stuff that turns out not to be right. I don't want to put anybody in that position. But suffice to say, you certainly can say that there are rescues going on now on the Barrier Islands. Other questions for anybody? All right, so the schedule for the rest of the day, from my perspective, is we'll be briefing folks, local elected officials at 1:15 today. I'll then be monitoring what's going on in the storm for the next few hours. I think you can look back for us to have another briefing here later on today. Maria, what are we doing a briefing here later on?
We don't have a set time, we'll probably after cabinet briefing
Okay.
before 6:30.
Okay, so probably before 6:30. Then I'll ask the governor tonight from 7 to 8, and then we'll see what happens from there. If high tide comes in between 8 and 9 o'clock, that's going to really be the witching hour for us to see what we're dealing with from a flooding perspective. So I'll be monitoring it from there, and if there's a need for further briefings later tonight based upon that event, we'll certainly let you all know, and we'll give you a heads up as quickly as we can on that. But that's what I see going on for the rest of the day. There'll be another cabinet meeting this afternoon, and another briefing later on this evening, probably around 8:30 or so for elected officials across the state. Keep them informed. We'll have another one, as I said, at 1:15. So we're keeping everybody informed. We're doing it on a uniform basis. And I'd say to folks out there who are listening, you know, who are elected officials, don't be trying to call people side door, back door. You know, it's not going to work. We're trying to keep this uniform so that everybody gets the same information at the same time. So don't ask your state legislator to call the chief of staff. Not going to work this time. So let's make sure everybody gets on the call at 1:15. Everybody's available to do that, and we'll give everybody the information, any new information that we develop between what I just said and 1:15. We'll share on that call. So thank all of you for being here. Appreciate it, and thank the folks who are watching. And we'll be back here later on this afternoon or early this evening to brief all of you again more fully. But the bottom line is stay home. That's the best way to stay safe. The storm is not at its apex yet. It's going to get worse between now and the next time I speak to you. So stay hunkered down, stay safe with your families. If you do that, we'll be ready to take care of the rest. Thank you all very much.